Well, here we go. WCW Road Wild 99, taking place at the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally in South Dakota in front of a bunch of bikers. This is the final Road Wild pay-per-view WCW would produce, and the buy rate for this one actually wasn't all that bad. 235,000 fans are tuning in, and a lot of these buys are thanks to Dennis Rodman competing in the semi-main event against Macho Man Randy Savage. All WCW pay-per-views featuring Rodman did pretty good numbers. Fans are also tuning in to see Hulk Hogan defend his World Heavyweight title against Kevin Nash. The red and yellow's running wild once again, brothers, but it could very well stop running wild if Kevin Nash beats Hogan tonight. This main event's a retirement match, and whoever loses must leave WCW for good. Seriously. We begin with Vampiro in the ICP, representing the Deadpool, taking on Eddie Guerrero, Billy Kidman, and Rey Mysterio. These guys, along with Conan, would make up the Filthy Animals faction, but they haven't been given their group name just yet. Raven's also here, but he doesn't get involved in the fight that kicks off the match. As the bout settles down, I noticed two things. One, I'm going to be looking at a lot of sausage throughout this entire pay-per-view. And two, there's someone in the audience with an air horn, and it's making fart noises.
Go up top as well.
Certainly can, Tony. And
we see the BK bomb from Billy, the slingshot senton from Guerrero, and a slingshot leg drop from Rey Mysterio. Vampiro replies with a nice heel kick. Shaggy 2-Dope and Violent J then attack Eddie on the outside, and Mike Tenay says Vampiro is going to play bass guitar on a future ICP album. Vampiro did actually appear on an album, but I couldn't tell you if it's good or not. In comes Violent J with a clothesline followed by a few punches and a jawbreaker. Shaggy 2-Dope comes in to perform a suplex, and why can these guys wrestle better than former US champion David Flair? Eddie tries to get to his corner following a springboard Hurricane Rana, but Vampiro stops him with a chokeslam. The ICP then deliver a double suplex to Guerrero, but the break finally comes when Eddie hits Shaggy with a superplex. Even if you don't like the Insane Clown Posse, you gotta give it to them. They don't look out of place at all inside the wrestling ring. Mysterio's in with a seated senton, followed by a lion salt. Raven stops Mysterio from doing any more damage though, and Vampiro goes out to deliver a nail in the coffin to Rey. Mysterio's been softened up nicely for Violent J back inside the ring, and J continues to impress with a sidewalk slam and a knee breaker. Rey then takes a ridiculous release powerbomb from Vampiro, but if you want to see something really impressive, here's Shaggy 2-Dope pulling off a running power slam. Clearly, he studied the absolute top tier masters of the game, but Mysterio manages to get a boot up in the corner and he's able to tag out after a split-legged moonsault. In comes Billy Kidman delivering dropkicks like they're going out of fashion. Eddie pulls off a plancha that wipes out Vampiro while Mysterio performs a Bronco Buster. I don't think it's called the Rough Rider anymore, by the way. And our match ends when Vampiro accidentally kicks Shaggy 2-Dope and Billy Kidman pulls off a shooting star press. This match was alright. Most people, like myself, will go into this one with low expectations, but the ICP weren't bad at all, and there were some high impact moves on display here from Rey, Kidman, Guerrero, and Vampiro. Though in saying that, we can see this all on Nitro every single week. More tag team action next as the reunited Harlem Heat take on Bam Bam Bigelow and Canyon for the tag team championships. One of those belts do not want to stay around the waist of Bam Bam Bigelow. The Jersey Triad benefit from the Freebird rule, but Diamond Dallas Page does not come out with his boys. Page has a US title match later tonight, so I guess he's saving himself for Chris Benoit. Canyon says most of these biker Michael-likers can't afford cable TV, and when the fine folks in the audience start revving their engines, Chris decides not to ask who better than Canyon because these people are dumb. Harlem Heat single out Bam Bam at the beginning of the match, and I want you to listen closely here. Just before Booker pulls off a Harlem sidekick, someone shouts something in the audience. Bam Bam Gigolo, brilliant. The Triad take a timeout. Canyon and Stevie Ray resume the match. Stevie Ray shows off his strength with a gorilla press slam to Chris, followed by a body slam to Bam Bam, and the Triad regroup again on the outside before Booker T gets tagged in. Booker brings it to the corner where he beats the shit out of Canyon. The crowd pops for a Booker T dropkick. Big boy Stevie Ray and Bam Bam get back in, and we have a stalemate after a Bigelow shoulder block. Stevie Ray gives Bigelow one more chance before running his opponent down with a clothesline. So Canyon comes back in, and Stevie pays with a few corner clotheslines followed by a chin lock. Stevie does not know what hit him, and neither do these backers in Sturgis. The break comes when Stevie Ray catapults Kenyon into Bam Bam Bigelow. Booker T gets tagged in and he's looking good with his signature forearm shot followed by a spinning back kick. But when he goes for the axe kick, Bigelow makes Booker tumble out of the ring and the future 5-time WCW champion takes a bump at the ring steps. Back inside the ropes, Kenyon pulls off a middle rope famouser and it looks like Booker's now done for. But a second attempt gets stopped with a falling powerbomb and Booker needs to tag out. In comes Stevie Ray and it's not looking good right now for the Triad. So DDP makes an appearance to help out his teammates, only the plan backfires when Bigelow runs into Page. Booker then delivers the missile dropkick, Stevie Ray makes the cover, and Harlem Heat become 8-time WCW Tag Team Champions at Road Wild. I didn't think much of this match if I'm honest. Booker T firing up a little was the best part of the bout, and even Chris Kenyon didn't do a whole lot here, which isn't like him at all. Still, Harlem Heat's back at the very top of the WCW Tag Team division, and I'm happy to see it.
I like country music, I love country girls, I like Willie Nelson, and don't forget about Merle. There's only one thing that I hate, 'cause it's a bunch of crap. I hate rap.
You gotta be kidding me. Another tag team match is up next. That's 3 in a row, and what's even worse is all our remaining matches are one-on-one encounters. The West Texas Rednecks, consisting of Curt Hennig, Barry Windham and Bobby Duncombe Jr., take on the Revolution, consisting of Perry Saturn, Dean Malenko and Shane Douglas. These fans at Road Wild seem to really like the Rap is Crop song, but Perry Saturn couldn't care less. He says the Revolution want to prove a point tonight, and he tells one of these ladies to get in the ring for a fight. All 6 men go at it, and just like the previous tag matches, the initial brawl ends with the heels taking a timeout on the outside. No one thought to change things up when they saw 3 tag team matches, one after the other. We have got Dean Malenko wrecking Barry Windham before Saturn comes in and we see a double back elbow. Shane Douglas gets in and he strangely brings Barry to the West Texas Rednecks corner, and of course he takes a beating. This allows Bobby D to tag in and Shane takes a boot to the face. The franchise tags out after delivering a power slam, and we have now got Saturn suplexing Barry Windham all over the ring. That no good Kendall Windham then hits Saturn from the outside with his bull rope, and Barry lands a jumping clothesline before Curt Hennig delivers his rolling neck snap. Kendall once again gets involved in the match, but he doesn't do a very good job, seeing as Perry continues his suplexing spree immediately afterwards. We then get Dean Malenko doing a little work on Bobby D before Shane tries to end it with a Pittsburgh plunge, but the move gets broken up and Shane takes a few shots from Kendall on the outside. Again though, his offense doesn't really affect the match as Shane fires right back and it's Curt Hennig getting crotched on the ring post. Shane has a few problems with Barry Windham back in the ring and he continues to get wrecked when Bobby D tags in. The West Texas Rednecks then focus on keeping Shane away from his corner, but Shane and Barry Windham bump heads when going for shoulder blocks, and Shane gets his opportunity to tag out after a failed corner attack from Bobby Duncombe Jr. As expected, the match breaks down into a 6-man brawl, and when Malenko applies the cloverleaf, Kendall Windham jumps in to break up the hold. Shane takes care of Kendall, Saturn hits Bobby Duncombe Jr. with the Death Valley Driver, and the Revolution wins this tag team match at Road Wild. The fight continues after the bell, but the heels get taken out, and yeah, this was nothing special at all. 3 tag team matches back to back wasn't a good idea, and these boys really needed to do something different to keep viewers engaged. There was nothing noteworthy at all going on here, and parts of the match actually dragged on a bit. Kinda incredible when you consider the talent inside the ring. Ernest Miller versus Buff Bagwell is our next match, and Miller manages to get more heat in 2 minutes than anyone else in the last hour or so. While wearing his Confederate gloves, all he has to do is tell these backers who really like Michael to turn their engines off. Immediately they start raving up and the cat gets pissed off, and he gets even more annoyed when Bagwell comes to the ring and the backers allow Buff to speak completely uninterrupted. As soon as Ernest snatches the mic, the engines start up again, and Buff tells Ernest he's not a crowd favourite here tonight in Sturgis. Ernest tells Doug Dillinger to order these fans to switch their engines off, and Doug's like, go fuck yourself, Ernie. So Buff tells Miller he sucks, and this leads to Ernest pulling off the first offensive move of the match, a hip toss. Sonny Ono offers some sound advice and Miller's able to body slam his opponent, and the crowd then chant Pussycat at Miller, which is the first chant of the whole pay-per-view. Bagwell performs multiple body slams and a clothesline. It almost looks like he's mocking the audience before celebrating his string of moves. Miller makes sure he mocks the audience by calling a guy in the front row a big fatty boom boom. And we then get a lot of stalling when Miller offers Bagwell a handshake. The crowd continues to chant Pussycat. Miller goes back on offense. Buff Bagwell gets choked out in the corner, but Buff Daddy comes back with 2 drop kicks and a few mounted punches. A low blow right to Buff stuff gets followed up with a standing sidekick from Ernest. Sonny Ono then earns his paycheck by choking Bagwell at the bottom rope not once but twice. Those motorbike engines get switched off when Miller applies a chin lock, and Bagwell stops Miller's offense with a suplex counter. Our match ends with Sonny Ono jumping on the apron holding a briefcase. Buff counters an Irish whip, the cat takes all the impact, Buff Daddy wins via pinfall, and Miller attacks Buff after the bell while Ono makes fun of Buff Daddy. You know, the match wasn't good or anything, but the crowd had fun thanks to Ernest Miller. It's like they woke up for this one, and that's why you shouldn't start a pay-per-view with 3 tag team matches one after the other. Diamond Dallas Page takes on Chris Benoit next for the WCW US Championship. Before the US title match begins, DDP apologizes for talking smack about Benoit's mother. Page knows Chris loves his mother, but so can anyone for $2.99 a minute. Cold as ice. Benoit makes his entrance, and you know, it's actually a shame David Flair lost the US title because it would have been hilarious seeing him panic in front of this crowd. So, this isn't the first time we have seen these two square off on pay-per-view, but this time it's no disqualification. DDP gets in Benoit's face and Chris hits a low blow, taking advantage of the match stipulation pretty early. Benoit goes to work on the challenger and he counters an early powerbomb attempt before hitting a baseball slide. On the outside, Page turns it around by throwing Chris into the guardrail, and back inside the ring, Dallas performs a belly-to-belly. The match then slows down with some chin abuse before DDP drops Benoit on the mat from the fireman's carry position. Dallas is filled with confidence now as he delivers a gutbuster to the US champ. We see a clothesline from DDP, a spine buster from DDP, the Tony Schiavone still calling a sidewalk slam, but this time he actually corrected himself. Dallas is now toying around with his opponent and he's making it look really easy. And the moment Chris tries to build a comeback, it gets shut right back down again by Diamond Dallas Page. Chris gets put in the Tree of Woe, and when Charles Robinson tries to gain some order, he gets smacked in the face. Poor lad didn't deserve that, did he? Page takes Robinson's belt not because he wants Charles' pants around his ankles, but because he wants to whip Benoit in the corner. Gotta say, Page is looking pretty badass right about now. Benoit gets annihilated here as DDP continues to use that belt to his advantage. It looks like we're going to see a new US champion at Road Wild because this has been a real one-sided match so far. Finally, Chris takes control of the belt though, and DDP gets whipped before Benoit pulls off his 3 German suplexes. For the past few weeks, Benoit's been bridging in between every suplex, which forces DDP to kick out 3 times. Canyon runs down to stop a diving headbutt attempt, and Benoit falls right into a Uranagi from DDP. And then we see the Revolution watching the match while Canyon continues to get involved. They even stand back when Bam Bam Bigelow runs down to hit a splash that didn't look too hot to be fair. And the insanity continues when Benoit has to deal with all 3 Triad members at the same time while his teammates cheer him on while watching a monitor. Am I the only one who thinks this is stupid? It doesn't matter, I guess, because it ends with Bigelow inadvertently headbutting Page in the nuts. Benoit then headbutts Bigelow in the nuts. Chris then goes up for the dive and headbutt, and it's over. Benoit successfully defends his US title, and he didn't even need the Revolution's help. I know this makes Chris look like a tough guy, but it also makes the Jersey Triad look really weak. The match was alright. Benoit didn't have to do a whole lot, though this was the meanest we've ever seen DDP inside the ring in a long time. Still, this event hasn't had a single standout match so far. Up next, we have the Millennium Man versus the Icon as Big Sid Vicious takes on Sting. As Sid makes his way to the ring, the commentary team make reference to the big man's current win streak without actually stating just how many wins he has. But tonight, Big Sid Vicious faces the biggest threat to that undefeated record. In typical WCW fashion though, there's some bullshittery afoot. While yes, Sid hasn't been pinned or submitted, he has in fact lost 3 times via DQ. Against Sting on the June 21st Nitro, he and Savage were DQ'd on the June 24th Thunder, and he lost via DQ to Hogan on the July 19th Nitro. Still, why let facts get in the way of a mediocre story, eh? Despite the majority of those in attendance seemingly having no interest in pro wrestling, the Stinger still gets a good reaction. Some unabashed heelery right off the bat as Sid refuses to break clean in the corner, laying in a few cheap shots. But as the big man looks to do the same in the opposite corner, he finds himself straddling the top rope and Sting connects with a Stinger splash. The Icon scores with a second Stinger splash before sending Sid up and over the top rope. Sting goes out to meet Sid and he sends him into the guardrail a few times before both men eventually make their way back inside the ropes. Sting takes the route of spamming signature moves as he goes for a third Stinger splash, but Sid finally learns his lesson. The big man moves out of the way and Sting crashes into the turnbuckle. Sid maintains the advantage with kicks and clubs before hitting a power slam for a 2. Sting then gets his face pulled at the ropes while Sid grunts loudly in his ear before connecting with a leapfrog body guillotine. A backbreaker garners another 2 count for Sid, and all this high intensity action is reason enough for Sid to slow things down by popping on a chin lock. Miraculously, Sting's able to break free, but Sid goes right back to work with kicks to the midsection before dropping the Stinger with a clothesline. Sid then takes some time to play up to the crowd because if there was one thing this match needed, it was time wasting. Just as I say that though, we go back to the outside and this time it's Sting who gets introduced to the guardrail. That's just too much exertion from Sid though, so he locks in chinlock number 2. This match could have some redeeming qualities after all. Sting gets back to his feet and he's able to take Sid down with a shoulder block before hitting the most telegraphed accidental headbutt to the bald spot you'll ever see. This would have been more effective if we hadn't already seen this spot twice throughout this pay-per-view. Sid then looks to go up top, probably not the best idea considering what happens in the future, and it does indeed prove to be a bad move as Sting throws the Millennium Man to the canvas. Following this, it looks like Sting was meant to hit the ropes and connect with something, but Sid trips him up in a way that looked accidental. My theory's proven correct as just seconds later, Sting goes for a splash and Sid gets the knees up, which would imply this was the spot they were initially going for. Sting fires back with a few strikes before getting cut off with an admittedly great looking big boot. Once again, our sizable friend fails to learn as he goes back to the top rope, and once again he's cut off, this time with a superplex. Stinger splash 3 and 4 connect, but not the 5th as Sid catches Sting by the throat and he scores with a chokeslam to pick up the win. Kinda surprised with a clean finish here if I'm honest, but I'd be complaining too if there was interference. This match went just under 11 minutes, but Christ alive, did it feel double that. Sting's great and Sid has his place for sure, but this plodding, slow and quite frankly boring match is not the way to showcase either of these guys. Still, the Millennium Man's win streak continues as he knocks off Sting at Road Wild. Goldberg recently returned on Nitro and he's got himself involved in a rivalry with the dog-faced gremlin, as well as Sid Vicious. Goldberg and Steiner have been going at it for weeks now, and they look to settle things here in Sturgis. Steiner endears himself to the audience by flipping them off before intimidating poor Dave Penzer. To be fair though, look at the state of him, he deserves to be bullied for that waistcoat he has on. On the subject of poor taste, Billy Boy once again comes to the ring to crush him, even though it's been dubbed over on the network to his WWE theme for some reason. He's also wearing a snazzy knee brace, which makes me think Goldberg's knee may be the point of attack for Rick. The two begin throwing punches in the middle of the ring before Steiner gets dropped with a big clothesline from Goldberg. Rick then connects with, I think, a spinning back elbow. But Goldberg doesn't sell it and Rick gets up second, so God knows what this was meant to be. A sidekick, I know what that is. That knocks Rick down again, and the dog-faced gremlin looks to take some refuge on the outside. When he gets back inside the ring, Rick pushes the referee into Goldberg, allowing Steiner to kick Billy Boy right in his little universal soldier. Aha, I proved myself to be a wrestling genius as Rick proceeds to take Goldberg's knee brace off as I predicted. Look at me go. Rick then wraps the brace around his arm and he strikes Goldberg in the head with it before using it to drop Billy Boy with a clothesline. Schiavone then mentions that Rick using the brace as a weapon is not grounds for disqualification. According to Tony, it isn't a foreign object because it's part of Goldberg's attire. I mean, sure, but wouldn't that mean that Ernest Miller's ruby slippers shouldn't be classed as foreign objects either? What am I talking about? It's 1999 WCW, nothing makes sense. Rick continues to work over Goldberg with his knee brace as he starts targeting the knee with a few stomps and an elbow drop. Steiner then drops the brace to deliver a picture-perfect belly-to-belly, but it only gets a 2. Goldberg's able to fight back and he connects with his military press into a power slam, all while showing no ill effects of his supposedly injured knee. Goldberg then spears Rick before hitting the jackhammer, and Goldberg beats Rick Steiner at Road Wild 99. This was a weird match as Rick pretty much dominated up until the last 30 seconds or so, but it consisted mainly of shots with the knee brace as opposed to actual wrestling moves, so it's yet another dud on this card. Oh boy, I've been simultaneously dreading and looking forward to this one as an underwhelming and seemingly unmotivated Macho Man Randy Savage takes on untrained basketball man, basketballer, basketballist, straight up baller, player of balls, ballmaster, Dennis Rodman. Rodman's competed in WCW twice before, but they were both tag team encounters. The Worm's going to have to go it alone tonight against the former WCW champion. After what seems like an ice age, Rodman makes his way down to the ring in an entrance robe that looks like it's been made out of his nan's curtains. Macho Man makes his entrance without Gorgeous George. As Savage said, as long as Rodman's around, George would be kept under lock and key. Remember, she was abducted by Rodman a few weeks ago on Nitro. Before the match gets underway, Rodman cuts a promo and he asks Savage where his, and I quote, bitch is at. A delightful young man, that Dennis Rodman. Macho says in response that he's gonna make Rodman his bitch and he invites those in attendance to fight for sloppy seconds. I'll pass. Cheers, mate. Rodman attacks Savage with the microphone to kick this one off. On the outside, Rodman throws Macho Man into the ring post and the steel guardrail. Back inside, Rodman throws Savage to the corner before delivering a not terrible looking back elbow, to be fair. The Worm stays in control with a short arm clothesline and a Russian leg sweep, all whilst wearing his sunglasses. But then he argues with the referee and this goes on for ages. Rodman starts to look a bit lost before dropping Billy Silverman with a clothesline. All these shenanigans allow Macho to recover and he goes to the eyes of Rod the Bod before choking him out on the ropes. Rodman then gets dropped over the top rope before Macho takes out a ringside photographer, and that's because he's a bit mental, you see. And Macho uses his camera to clock Rodman in the back of the head. Savage then attacks the second and third referee before he charges at Rodman, but he ends up getting backdropped over the top rope down to the floor. Randy's able to regain control on the outside, sending Rodman into the guardrail before connecting with a double axe handle to the back. Savage then grabs the Worm, steady on, and he takes him up to the top of the ramp. Rodman's able to send Savage spilling down another ramp at the side of the entranceway, but Dennis once again gets sent into a guardrail and he ends up among some garbage. Rather apt for this show, I'd say. Even more apt, Rodman then gets put in the shitter and Savage proceeds to tip it over. And this right here is the spot that everyone remembers from this match and quite possibly the whole pay-per-view. Fair play to Rodman though, as it does legitimately look like there's some actual shit coming out of the bottom of that porta potty. The two men eventually make their way back down to the ringside area and Rodman proves why the second rope is the most dangerous of all as he wipes out referee number 4 with a diving clothesline. As Rodman locks Randy in a sleeper, Gorgeous George makes her way down to the ring. Savage breaks the sleeper with a jawbreaker, and George hands Macho a chain that he wraps around his fist. George hits a low blow, sort of. Savage nails Rodman with that chain. Macho Man covers the Worm, and Randy Savage gets the 1, 2, 3. Now, I'll be honest, I was ready to rip this match apart, but it was nowhere near as bad as I thought it was gonna be. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't good by any means, and a massive number of shortcuts were necessary to hide Rodman's inexperience. But fair dues to Dennis, he didn't botch anything and he performed all his moves with a fair level of competence. I repeat, the match isn't good by any stretch of the imagination and it's far too long considering who's involved, but it did surprise me just how watchable it was. It's main event time. Kevin Nash challenges Hulk Hogan for the world title with the added stipulation that whoever loses this match must retire. Yeah, let's see how that one works out. Because WCW haven't been losing enough money, Michael Buffer's here to announce the main event match. Big Sexy comes out first and the commentary team do their best to put over the magnitude of this stipulation, but I think even the most ardent WCW fan at the time would have been at least a little dubious. Hollywood's no more as the black and white has been cast aside for the red and yellow. The Hulksters return to WCW and credit where it's due. Hogan's still able to get the crowd in the palm of his hand. The fans chant Hogan's name before he and Nash lock up. Hulkster gets overpowered in the early going as Nash forces him into the corner, but Hogan returns the favour by forcing Big Sexy into the opposite corner. The two reset and Nash applies a side headlock. This stays in for a long time before Hogan eventually breaks it with a back suplex. The trend of wasting time continues as Nash rolls to the outside and both men stare at each other and talk a bit of trash before Big Sexy finally gets back inside. Now we get a test of strength, and my god, I'm making sure that I clicked on the right show. I thought this was 1999, not 1979. Anyway, Nash gets the better of Hulk, and as soon as Hogan looks to turn the tables, he gets cut off with a knee to the midsection. Nash lays in a few right hands before scoring with his signature knee strikes in the corner, and he then chokes the Hulkster with his boot before connecting with a couple of back elbows to Hogan, once again in the corner. We're only 5 minutes into the match and it already feels like 20. Big Sexy looks for a third back elbow, but Hogan moves out of the way and the champion lays in the right hands before winding up to connect with another big right. To be fair, we all know that winding up your punch makes it at least 3 times more powerful. Hogan then climbs the ropes to nail Nash with some mounted punches in the corner. He then goes to Kevin's eyes before once again scoring with, you'll never guess, a big right hand. Nash returns the favour by going to Hogan's eyes. He throws a forearm into Hogan's back before delivering a brand new and never before seen manoeuvre. I believe it's called a big right hand. Bloody hell. Big Kev stays in control and we finally see an actual wrestling move as Hogan takes a sidewalk slam. More time wasting follows as the lads take the fight to the outside and Hogan gets thrown into the lighting truss. Back inside the ropes, Nash delivers 2 leapfrog body guillotines before, for fuck's sake, we head back to the corner for more punches and another back elbow. The challenger then takes a page out of the champion's playbook as he scores with a big boot right to the face of Hogan before putting the Hulkster in position for the jackknife. Nash hits his finishing move, but Hogan kicks out, and there it is. Hogan begins hulking up. We see that Hogan's bleeding as he runs through his signature sequence. Punches, big boot, big leg. Hulkster makes the cover and Hulk Hogan defeats Kevin Nash at Road Wild, not only retaining his WCW title but forcing Kevin Nash to retire in the process. I mean, where do you even start with this? This match went for nearly 12 minutes and I think I counted 5 bumps maximum throughout the entire bout. Punches, elbows, chokes and clubs, that's all there is to this match. This would have underdelivered as a Nitro opener, let alone the main event of a pay-per-view, especially with the stakes that were placed upon it. Absolutely horrible, totally shit, but it's the perfect way to round off what was yet another dismal WCW pay-per-view event. Like so many WCW pay-per-views we've watched recently, I can't recommend Road Wild 99. I absolutely hate to be negative about pro wrestling, but there's no way I can say this show's worth watching. Not a single match on this card is what I would consider good, and there were no standouts at all. I did enjoy DDP showing a more violent version of himself, and the Macho Man vs Rodman match kinda exceeded my lower than low expectations, but I don't really recommend seeking either match out, you know. The main event wasn't good. Fans loved the red and yellow Hogan, which is great and all, but the action in the ring was incredibly stale. I mean, consider what this should have been, not what it could have been, what it should have been. The absolute implosion and the final nail in the coffin for the NWO. 2 of the original members going at it in a pay-per-view main event with one man leaving the company afterwards. The story wrote itself. The event could have been sold as the death of the NWO, but WCW didn't go down this route and they pissed away a potentially big moment in favour of a run-of-the-mill mediocre angle, capped off with a terrible match. So no, you don't need to see Road Wild, leave it alone and don't disturb it. Thank you for watching though, and I'll see you on Thursday for the Road Wild Fallout episode of Nitro. Please take care and do stay away from this pay-per-view.